I'm your host, Saba Long.
And I'm Eldridge Washington. And this is Where the Party At.
Today, there's so much happening politically.
Can I just say, I feel like maybe it's because I'm co-hosting with you. I've been paying attention a lot more. But
I'm also blowing up your phone with read this.
Yeah, but I feel like this is so juicy.
That's a lot.
I feel like this is probably the most entertaining thing that's happening.
Real Housewives of Atlanta meets politics.
Yeah,
basically.
so I'm this is an interesting cycle. Interesting cycle. Yeah. But I also think this for now might be the new norm.
Yeah, I think so.
Because
politics is not boring per se anymore.
Because you know what, and this might be going a little bit off, but like as I see what's happening in this governor race, imagine what's about to happen in this next Atlanta mayoral race.
Oh, it's going to be.
That's
God help us all. God help us all.
I'm going to put some predictions out like later down the road.
Yeah. Just
so people can be like, oh, Eldridge knew what he was talking about.
I think it will be a lot spicier.
Because I feel like municipal politics in Atlanta is like super big. The mayor race gets more attention than the governor's race.
Right.
I
mean, think about the last council president race. That got a little spicy.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So, like,
and the one before that got a little spicy. So, we're just getting closer and closer.
So, what's the latest thing you want to talk about?
The lieutenant governor's race.
All right.
So, which has gotten a little spicy on the Democratic side, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And we actually have a special guest.
Yeah.
You'll hear and see from that person a little later. But first, I want to just talk about the Republican primary.
All right.
And then we can go into the Democratic primary, which is really crowded on the Republican side.
All right, before we get into it, lieutenant governor, for those that are watching, is the vice governor.
They preside over the Senate, and if something happens to the governor, they step in.
Okay,
it's kind of like the city council president. It's probably the closest.
All right, so city council president presides over the city council meetings.
City council, they select committee assignments. They step in if something happens to the mayor. Very similar on the lieutenant governor side.
Do they vote at all?
I believe in a case of a tie. I believe that's right.
So they can't. Okay, cool. So that's what the lieutenant governor is for those that don't know.
Very powerful position at the state capitol.
Currently, Burt Jones.
Yes.
Is our lieutenant governor.
Right.
And he ran. Who did he beat when he won?
Oh gosh,
I don't even remember the race. I just remember there.
Yeah,
that's
I remember
crazy.
It was contentious, but I don't remember who ran.
It was mainly contentious because it was him, but like,
right. Yeah.
All right. So Burt Jones is the current, and he's running for governor. So the lieutenant governor is essentially like the city council president. He's like the vice governor.
Right.
All right. Boom.
But
so
on the Senate side,
so let's
at the state capitol. All right. So you got 7 candidates. I'm just going to highlight 4 because these 4 are kind of the ones who are getting the most attention, raising the most money.
I always feel sorry for the other ones when you do that.
I know, and this is the game of politics. If you're not raising money and you don't have momentum.
If you're not first, you're last. Ricky Bobby. Let's go.
All right. So first up is Steve Gooch, who's
hate it.
Oh my God. Who's out of Dahlonega. So he's a former Senate Majority Leader. He's been in office since 2010. So he's kind of branding himself. Actually, quite a few of them are branding themselves as the MAGA guy.
Yeah.
Really, all 4 of these would say that they're the MAGA guys. One thing he has done is push for an American First license plate. That's really important. And then next up, we have John Kennedy. Not that John Kennedy, a different John Kennedy from Macon. And he's a former Senate President pro tem. So these are all folks who understand leadership and understand how to use this role, this position. So
formidable.
Right. Yeah. So John Kennedy, I would say, is probably more focused as being a results candidate, not as much of being a MAGA candidate. Then you have Blake Tillery from Vidalia. And similar, he's kind of, I would say, positioning himself as a results-oriented candidate. Also on the younger side, which I always try to highlight younger folks because so many old people run. No shade, but just it is what it is.
More senior people.
More senior. Thank you. There you go. I've got a gray or two. And then we've got Greg Dolezal as the last person. He's in Cumming, Georgia. and he might be more right. He might be the most right one of all four that I've mentioned. He most recently put out an ad, or it was an ad where he talked about Sharia law and said that Muslims were a threat to Georgia, which, we don't often see that kind of politics or that kind of campaigning happen here, but we're seeing a lot of it right now, both in the governor's race, not necessarily around Sharia law, but certainly around things like trans athletes in schools.
Right.
And so he is definitely running on the right. And then there's three other people I'll just, honorable mention. State Representative David Clark. Then there's Brenda Nelson Porter, and then Takosha Swan. I don't know who that is, but they sound black. But maybe they're not. I don't know.
Takosha
I have to
Swan.
Google them. So the real question is, you've got these four. We know that there's going to be a runoff. I don't see any candidate being able to get that 50% plus one vote in the May primary. So it's a question of who wins the primary, kind of like with the governor's race. Like,
Right.
will we see two MAGA guys at the finish line, or will it be one sort of moderate person and then one more MAGA person?
Yep. Takosha Swan is a black woman.
See, look at that.
Mm. Look at you.
Interesting. Oh, man, we should have her on.
Knowing how to sound it out.
Look at that. I know phonics.
Who's reading money? Who's leading in money over there? What are the money looking like in lieutenant governor?
It's a lot better than on the Democratic side,
Okay.
which is the
I mean,
case
that's-
with the governor's race too.
yeah, that's kinda
The
natural,
Republicans are raising money. Yeah, I think Dolezal. I have to go back and double check, but I know Dolezal has a good chunk. Tillery has a good chunk. Gooch has a good chunk. They're raising significant money.
Okay. Cool. Who we got fighting for us on the Democratic side?
So the Democratic side has gotten a little spicy, and that's because, well, there's three people running. The first person I'll mention as an honorable mention again is a guy named Richard Wright, black guy who's actually been sort of engaged to some extent in Atlanta politics. I first met him when Felicia Moore was running for mayor, and he was on her campaign. But the two people,
The tall guy?
yeah,
He running for the Senate?
yeah.
Man, shout out to him. I just feel like he always been in a room. I see him everywhere randomly. So, okay.
Yeah,
Shout out to
who's
him.
running.
I did not know he was
Yeah,
running.
good memory. But the two people who really everyone's paying attention to first is Josh McLaurin, who's been running for this position since last year.
And he's going to be on later.
Yeah, he will be our special guest later. So he launched his campaign again last year, and he is a former, I think one of Josh's claims to fame is that he was actually in law school with J.D. Vance, by the way. So they both went to Yale Law together. But Josh is known as being kind of confrontational. Like, he's willing to speak his mind and say what he feels.
Right.
Which is also useful in the world of campaigns, right?
Right.
So Josh, there were two guys running originally, a guy named Seth Clark out of Macon, and qualifying week was the week of March 6th. And
Right.
Seth Clark, I don't know if it was the beginning of qualifying week or right before, he announced that he was not going to run after all. So he dropped out of the race. So we all thought, okay, it's just Josh now and this Richard guy, but essentially it's Josh's race. At the last minute, Nabila Parks jumped in. Now, Nabila was running for insurance commissioner against John King. And Nabila decided at the very last minute to jump out of the insurance commissioner race and into the lieutenant governor's race. And she said one of the reasons why she did this was because of Greg Dolezal's anti-Muslim ad. And She
Okay.
was really upset about that, and she decided to pivot to this race. So naturally, it was a big shock for folks, and they're like, wait, what the heck? Now we have two competitive Democrats running against each other. Now, I should note that I invited both Nabila and Josh to come on the show because there's been a good bit of back and forth about why Nabila jumped in and, the impact that it's going to have on the race. So I sent them both a note and I said, hey, your race is getting pretty spicy. Would love to have you on the pod. And Josh replied and said, tell me when. And so you'll hear from him a little bit later. Nabila did not, but hopefully that she will.
After she see this, she'll come on.
Yeah, and hopefully she'll come on and just, tell us about why she's running and why she thinks she's the right candidate.
So apparently it was a bit controversial when she jumped. I seen Josh made a statement.
Yeah.
Mainly for those that don't know, when you're running for office, if you are in the Senate or the House, if you work under the dome, you cannot fundraise during session. So for 40 days.
40 days. 40 legislative days, not 40 calendar days.
Yeah. So 40 legislative days, your hands are tied financially, which is hard because you need money to.
Right, because the primary is May 19th. And
right.
You got to get your,
you got to get your bread up. So essentially with 8 days left, she jumps out.
She resigns.
She resigns for her position. Two things. Yeah, she jumps out of her race.
She jumped into the lieutenant governor's race. That was one thing.
Yeah.
And then she said, after that, I'm now going to resign my seat. So my voters no longer have representation in the state Senate. And rightfully so, Josh attacked her on it.
So what is more, why are we really mad? Are we mad that she jumped in? Are we mad she left her voters?
We are not mad.
I know we, but when I say we, the people who are making this a thing, a controversial thing.
Yeah,
like what makes it really thing?
I think it's both. I think it's the fact that she jumped in. She was in a race where she would have been the Democratic nominee for insurance commissioner. Hands down. She would have won that primary.
So
she's now made the lieutenant governor primary competitive. So that's one X.
All right, well, you jumped in a race.
Yeah, but the other X's, there were only, a dozen, maybe not even that, legislative days left in the session. So she got through crossover day, but there's a whole lot that happens between crossover day and sine die, the end of session. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, why not just wait and finish out your term? So that's the big controversy. But I will say in her defense-ish, Jason Estevez did the same thing.
Dana Barrett did the same thing.
No, Dana Barrett's still there.
But she jumped in a race that heavily was supported by Judge Penny Brown.
Right.
Heavily establishment supported. And a lot of people seeing that as like a
why'd you do that?
Why jump in there?
Right.
So I'm just saying, that's why I was saying, what's the controversy? Is it controversy because you jump in? Yeah. Is it controversy because you leave your seat?
Yeah. I think it's also just the timing. Like she literally did this the last day of qualifying. So it wasn't like, so that means that I have to go back and look, but I don't think anyone who would be sort of competitive to John King, the insurance commissioner, was able to jump in the race.
So he's just in there.
Right. Now, granted, beating an incumbent insurance commissioner is incredibly difficult, and she would have had an uphill battle anyway. And perhaps that was part of her calculation as well. Is, hey, am I going to just take one for the team, or am I going to try to actually win a race that I think I can win?
Well, I just looked her up because I didn't know who she was. Yes, she got looks on her side.
She got a black husband.
Yeah, gorgeous woman. In politics, looks matter. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I mentioned that Josh is like, and you'll see this when he comes on. He's dynamic. He has some energy. Yeah. Nabila does too.
Okay, but did she respond back to his thing? Because his post,
she did. Yeah, okay. She responded back, and we can pull it up. But the comments were mixed.
Yeah.
Right. So it's her post, her page, but the comments were kind of like, Nabila, I'm still not that crazy about what you did. So and I'll read it real quick if Instagram will let me see this without logging in.
Yeah. So essentially, Josh said, yo, you jumped in this race.
He called it a purely political move.
Yeah. He said a purely political move. You left your voters hanging.
Right.
Because you wanted to
raise.
This the type of person you're going to elect.
Yeah. And then she said she was disappointed that he would open the campaign with an attack, particularly one that echoes the misogynistic trope of women as impulsive. And then she goes on to say, my constituents know that my heart and my fight are in the right place. That's why I've been elected twice in tough races. She talks about her track record and what she will do as lieutenant governor.
Okay.
But the comments were really mixed.
If you're on her campaign team and you see this happen, are you advising her to do it or not do it? To jump in this race or not jump in this race? Because like you just said, insurance, uphill battle, it's hard to beat. Should she do this?
I don't know. I don't know if I have a good answer to that. I think, well, first of all, I would say even when she jumped into the insurance commissioner race, that felt random.
Right.
Because it wasn't like.
Why are you running? What are you doing?
And I have to go back and look, but my understanding, it wasn't like she had a track record of addressing legislation that dealt with insurance related issues. Right. So it wasn't like she was continually beating the insurance commissioner over the head about what she deemed were bad policies.
Right.
It was just all of a sudden I'm running for insurance commissioner. We're like, oh, okay. And then this also felt quite sudden.
Got you. All right. Runner.
Runner. Oh, she's a runner.
Yeah.
But I think Nabila is really smart. I will say that. I think that she is a voice that the Democratic Party needs right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm curious. Is she's really young? So even if this doesn't pan out, she's got a lot of time on her hands still.
Right.
And so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So do you? And then we can go on. We can get to it. But I just want to keep kind of focusing on this maneuver and move we're seeing in politics of people jumping in races and then also resigning from seats like really early. I feel like Mo Ivory won a seat
in 2024.
Yeah,
at the end of 2024.
And we're gonna talk. Like, I think that's deserves its own episode. We'll just talk about Fulton on its own. But she's jumping into another race. Like, so is this something? It's almost like this. We're in the era of the political portal. We talk about college football and the portal is open.
Everyone's a free agent.
Everyone's a free agent. Like, she just jumped in the portal. Yeah. Last minute. Are we mad? I'm not mad at athletes being able to jump in the portal like that. Like, so she jumped in the portal. That's how I'm looking at it. And I'm saying, go play ball.
I think that's what she would say too. And then may the best person win. Okay, so that's the breakdown of Lieutenant Governor's race. But Josh is actually here. So I think it's good. Can we bring him into the studio now? And let's actually talk about this Lieutenant Governor race and what he's thinking about it and what he wants voters to know. Josh McLaurin, welcome to Where the Party At.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
Okay, so we were talking about the Lieutenant Governor's race, which obviously you're running for. But before we go deep into all the questions, just give us a little bit of background on who you are and then why you're running for Lieutenant Governor.
Sure, happy to. So my name is Josh McLaurin. I am a state senator right now for North Fulton County. So it took me 3 years to figure out the fastest way to describe my district is exits 2 to 10 on Georgia 400. So if you're a 400 commuter, it's kind of Phipps Plaza area, but not Lenox though. Thank you, gerrymandering. So cuts between the two malls, goes up 400, and it's in Alpharetta's, the northern end of the district around Old Milton Parkway. And it's basically a commuter district. I mean, you got a lot of folks who drive to work and go back to their residential communities at the end of the day. This is a district that's been trending Democratic for a long time. And, I first in 2018, I got into politics when I ran for state house and flipped a seat and was inside the Senate district. It's a Sandy Springs, Roswell, Johns Creek house seat that I first flipped. Was Republican for a couple decades and is now kind of a Democratic stronghold. So, before I ran for office, I've been an attorney. I've been practicing law while in office. So 2018, I ran my first race formally, ran for State House in Sandy Springs, Roswell, Johns Creek. It was House District 51, and that had been a Republican stronghold for a long time, for decades. And so I was, I think, the first Democrat to contest it in about that amount of time as well, and won by 3 points. It was 51.5 to 48.5. It was part of the so-called blue wave in 2018. And we flipped, in the House, we flipped 14 Democratic seats, or flipped 14 seats red to blue that year. We lost 3, so it was a net of 11. So we went from 64, I think, in the State House to 75, and the halfway point's 90. So that was a huge year for Democrats. And so I came in having never expected to get into politics, but I was one of the post-Trump guys, who was like, I don't like this, this is, I don't like the direction the country's going, so I want to be part of the solution.
Was this your first time ever running?
Well, so the first time I qualified for a race was 2018, but what's funny is 2016, Trump wins, and CD6 opens up, because this is Congressional District 6, the old one that Lucy McBath used to have before they started moving her all over the place. So basically, it's December 2016. I get in the race. I announce I'm running for Congress in Tom Price's old seat, because I grew up in that district. I had no political experience, and I was raising decent money. In like 3 weeks, I raised maybe $40,000 as a first-time candidate. Didn't feel too bad about that. I was the fundraising leader, or so I thought. Then I heard these rumors that there was a 30-year-old white guy that had John Lewis's endorsement, Hank Johnson's endorsement, $250,000.
I think I know who you're talking about.
But what's so funny is I thought at first it was a game of telephone, like that people were making that up about me. Like, oh, there's this 30-year-old white guy and he's got all this stuff. And I was like, yo, I don't have any of that stuff. That's crazy that you would say that. And everyone was like, no, it's a whole other guy. His name is John Ossoff, and he's definitely not you. And I was like, wow, okay. So I thought, okay, this was cute. I thought I could get in politics.
Nice try.
Exactly. But I got out of the way. And what was cool was some of the party leaders who were very skeptical of me just bounced on the scene all of a sudden. We're like, all right, look, we didn't know who you were, but it looks like you can raise a little money. Looks like you've got a good sense of teamwork.
Some legitimacy.
Like you got out of the way. It's not all about ego. You wanted the team to win, and that's special. So if you've got those ingredients, maybe you should run for State House. And so I started looking at, where I hadn't even picked a place to live yet. I just gotten back from New York, and I moved to Sandy Springs, and then ran for that State House seat, won, and lived in Sandy Springs for 5 years. And then when I won the Senate seat in 2022, I moved a little further in town for convenience within the district. So now I live in Atlanta, North Atlanta, the community of Buckhead, not the city of Buckhead. That's right, at an apartment up there. But yeah, so it's been an interesting ride. I've practiced law, in the meantime, and have been trying to just juggle everything. And now I'm running for lieutenant governor. So we can talk about that. I mean, I can tell you my motivation or why I'm doing it, but I feel like it's a continuation of what I've been trying to do since 2016, which is the Trump era. Unfortunately, has seen a collapse of courage in the Republican Party and just in a lot of political types everywhere, because it's the whole go along to get along. And yeah, we know it's crazy, but just keep your head down and hopefully the moment will pass. And I think what we're learning in the Trump era is if you don't speak truth to power, if you don't show up ready to challenge that dominant narrative and inject a little courage into political debates, the courage is not going to find itself. Somebody's got to show up with it. And so this race for me is about continuing what I've tried to build over the last 10 years since Trump first won, and try to hold these folks accountable and say what's really happening out loud.
Okay, one of the things you just mentioned in that conversation there was the party and stepping aside in party leadership. So candidate qualifying was a couple weeks ago, and there was a big shift in your race. So you went from essentially not having competition, right? You had competition, then you didn't, and then you did again. And that was Senator Nabila Parks, who decided to jump in that race literally the last day of qualifying, perhaps with the last hour or two of qualifying. Was there any conversation in the Democratic Party about, hey, here's what we think our slate should be, and here's what anyone who's considering running, here's what we want you to run for, and here's what we think you should do?
I can't speak to conversations that the party or anybody at the party had with former Senator Parks. What I can say is I know the party and the folks who are central to Democratic efforts right now, whether it's party leadership, our main elected officials, our past nominees, those folks all try to work together when they can. I know this, to coordinate, communicate. I mean, one way Democrats feel like we're better is that we are a party built more on consensus than Republicans. They obviously have kind of an authoritarian daddy situation going on right now with Trump.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that.
Right. And so I'm just telling it like it is, right? I put a poster board on the Senate floor recently with types of kids of narcissists and what it does to their psychology. I'm trying to go deep on them, like really let them know, y'all are hurting right now. I hope you get some therapy, right? But so Democrats, we feel like we're better because we talk about things and we try to coordinate and work collaboratively, establish consensus. And the party's in a tough spot because we are a party of consensus, and it would be great to hash it out and have a conversation, but we don't want to be anti-democratic either. Anybody has a right to run these races. If you can show up with the qualifying fee and you're ready to go and you pick a race that's right for you, who's a party leader to tell you not to, right? So it's a balance between that small d democratic norm of anybody can run versus the type of communication and coordination that we need to make sure we're not stepping on each other and that we put our best foot forward as a team. Right. I've already commented. I've released a statement on Nabila's entry into the race. I mean,
yeah, we showed that already.
Yeah, and I think that it's I think it's last minute. You know, I think it's rushed. I don't think it's well considered. Obviously, I'm biased because it's a race I'm already in. But what I think Democrats want as we approach this point of claiming the majority in Georgia, we want to show voters and Republicans that we're the adults in the room, that we're ready to lead. And part of being the adult in the room means we know who we are, we know what we want, and we execute on a plan, right? We don't act impulsively, we don't act in a haphazard way. You know, leadership needs to be steady-handed, I think is the message that Democrats need to be sharing with each other and sharing with voters, that we're ready to lead. So I got in this race in May of 2025, 10 months ago. I have reasons I want to run this race, not governor, not secretary of state, not attorney general, because I've got a law license. So a lot of people are like, well, why not attorney general? You're a lawyer. But there's more to these jobs than that. And lieutenant governor is a messaging role. It's a convening role for state legislators. It's the chair of the Senate, if you think about it, the president of the Senate. So you want somebody in that role who's good on camera, who can talk to 11 Alive when they come to the Capitol and ask about a bill. You want somebody in that role who is good friends with a bunch of senators and House colleagues, who can convene state legislative Democrats with one voice and speak with power with that unity. It takes community building to be in that role. And so part of the way I've tried to credential myself and campaign the way I'll govern is to build that consensus now as part of the campaign. We've got over 55 state legislative endorsements for my campaign. That's over half of all the Democrats that serve in the General Assembly. And the remainder of those Democrats are usually just, either I don't know them as well because I haven't served with them directly, or they're just staying out of it. But I'm not aware of any state Democrats that have endorsed either of my opponents. And so the case I'm making to my party to be the nominee this year is I am already building the consensus that we will need to govern now. Those signal group chats, those visits out to Camden County in the southeast and Dade County and Floyd County up in the northwest, that's not just campaigning. That's building the actual community and the infrastructure that we will rely on when it's time to lead the state. So
a quick question on that.
Sure.
So obviously you've talked a lot about consensus building. If you were to win, right? So let's assume that you get through the May primary and then you win in the November general election. You'd be presiding over a Senate that's Republican controlled.
Sure.
How does that work?
Well, a handful of ways. And I'll go ahead and start with my, rah-rah Democrats talking points. Even if they change the Senate rules, which they would try to eliminate the formal authority of the lieutenant governor, there's a lot of options left. So let me sort of back up and talk about the Georgia Constitution. There's two roles in the Georgia Constitution that are identified for the lieutenant governor, and only two. One is to preside over the Senate. So like if you've ever been in Robert's Rules of Order or Mason's Rules at a meeting, it's the chair of the meeting. So you basically chair the Senate, and which means you're calling on people to speak. You are introducing guests. You're just up there conducting business with the gavel, right? And that has more power than people realize, and I'll get to that in a second. The second thing is you succeed the governor if you need to. So you got to have the policy chops, the steady hand. You got to be ready in case you're called on to do that. But let's focus on the president of the Senate role, because that's in all likelihood the only thing that I'd be doing as lieutenant governor. Even if they change the Senate rules to where I can't appoint committee chairs or move legislation, there's three things I've been marketing that I think we should have the vision for that Democrats could do with that seat. Messaging, maneuvering, fundraising. So messaging is the bully pulpit. When WSB and ANF come to the Capitol and they say, hey, what's Democrats' position on this bill? I use 8 years of experience as both a politician and a lawyer. and the consensus I've built within my caucus to know how to talk about our issues, how to make sure our issues are front of mind. You know, we can say healthcare access all day. Can we talk about the $700 million that we could raise with a combination of cigarette excise taxes, bring them up to the national average, and premium taxes on insurance companies who are making profits in the billions with a B? And if we did just those two fixes overnight, we could pay for a subsidy plan that replaces all of those lost federal subsidies up to 400% of the poverty line. That's what I'm talking about, is can we say with specificity, here are our ideas, this is what we would do if we were in charge, and then once we're in charge, building the political will so that we can pass those bills and deliver for Georgians and talk about, explain to them how we've delivered for them. You need a team captain who can message well, and that's what the bully pulpit's all about. The second thing is maneuvering. I'm an attorney. I have some knowledge of procedure. I've had my fair share of shootouts at the OK Corral procedurally in the Senate, gotten amendments, ruled out of order because they have too many words in them, just knowing the rules and being able to show up and execute on just running the chamber efficiently. Also, the Republicans aren't used to having somebody in the chair that doesn't share all of their political views. So they've been a little bit asleep at the wheel, letting proceedings go in a comfortable way. They're going to have to be on their toes if there's a Democrat in the chair. What about this? Is there any objection to adjourning till 10 a.m. tomorrow? Hearing none. I mean, that took 5 seconds to say. Exactly. And so you see what I'm saying? If they're not on their toes, we could control the flow of traffic in the chamber. The third thing's fundraising. I've already been to the Democratic Lieutenant Governor Association receptions, that they're holding to introduce new candidates to current LGs. I'm already connected to a network of lieutenant governors around the country. Georgia is the center of the political universe nationally. Yeah. So it matters to have leadership in Georgia who is able to market Georgia politics, Georgia Democrats, to the entire country so they can keep investing the way they have been for John Ossoff and others. We can keep that spigot on and make sure that once Georgia's reliably blue, that presidential map looks completely different. Exactly. And so we want somebody in this leadership position to use the bandwidth that will be available to them in that number 2 spot to help make that case to national money and to national political figures. So that's the vision. And I'll say there's even a layer additional to that, which is that I've built friendships, and I mean that, with Republicans in the Senate chamber and in the House of Representatives. Just today, we had a win on the Senate floor that started with a speech that I gave about the war on drugs. So there was a bill to enhance penalties for fentanyl crimes. And the majority thinks that that's going to somehow deter people from using fentanyl. And I'm look, we've seen this movie before. The war on drugs is 50 years old plus. But both Republicans under Nixon talking about, well, we can't criminalize being against the war, being black. I mean, that's a direct quote that I quoted today from the well of a Nixon advisor who was explaining the rationale for the war on drugs. But then Democrats in the 90s with the crime bill in 1994 expanded mass incarceration. So we've had the decades of time and research and experience that show that when you criminalize people who have drug problems or addiction, you don't help them, right? Sending them to prison for longer sentences doesn't fix their basic problem, or it doesn't deter behavior. Yeah. So they had a bill today that would enhance penalties on people just for possessing a mixture that had fentanyl in it, even if they don't know that it has fentanyl in it. And I went up and I said, look, this is old school war on drugs stuff. It's not going to do anything for anybody. It's just going to hurt people. We had enough of a floor debate that started to build momentum. We had our minority whip, Kim Jackson, our leader, Harold Jones. We started introducing amendments. We got that conversation to a place that was robust enough. And guess what? A couple of Republicans went to the bill's author and said, we need to change it. And they fixed the bill on the Senate floor in response to Democratic opposition. But that's not because we screamed at them. It's not because we did mean tweets to fight them. We held them accountable through those relationships. We showed them through our friendships, through our mutual respect, this is not the way. And in real time, they adjusted course on a hot button issue that they would have loved to campaign against us on. But they fixed it because they thought it was actually the right policy. So that's some extra layer of magic too, that even if you take the partisan hat off, if you have leaders in that chamber who have built real relationships and can persuade Republicans to behave differently, that goes a really long way in advancing justice as well. And so that's the type of ethic I would want to bring if I were leading the chamber.
When you first sat down, we were talking about the Republicans who are running for lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
And there's a lot. And you mentioned Trump plays a huge role, right? So I think it's fair to say the Republican primary is a Trump love fest, right? And whoever gets the Trump endorsement probably has the best shot. But then again, that may not necessarily work in the general. We don't know yet. So 4 of these folks are you probably, at least 4 of them, I would assume you know pretty well. Is there anyone you really want to go up against?
You know, I will say part of the real privilege and joy of being a Democrat right now is watching Republicans fight each other.
Oh yeah, we talked a lot about this, particularly on the gubernatorial side. The Burt Jones and Rick Jackson debates have been.
That's the best brawl that's happened in politics.
Isn't that wild? Oh man, no, I mean look, I think some of this is the chicken's coming home to roost, right? The karma of the Trump era, which is when you put all your eggs in this basket, when you say this one guy determines everything, or big money determines everything. You put all your faith in big money and one authoritarian leader, it shows how unstable your politics really are. Like it starts to fall apart. And what's happening between Burt Jones and Rick Jackson is not deliberative democracy.
No, of course not.
It's right. It's not people.
But it is fun to watch, I will admit.
Exactly. So I guess part of the Democratic instinct is we're always like, we want to save everybody from themselves. You know, we want to go into districts that don't even want help and give help, you know, make sure that their hospitals are not closing, right, and that their public schools are not closing or being defunded through vouchers. You know, these districts are voting in some cases, Republicans who are neglecting the basic needs of the district, but the districts are still voting them in. And so Democrats are like, no, we want to save the day. We want to make sure that all of these social ills are solved, and including campaign finance. We want to make sure that these elections are free and fair and not influenced by outsized money or you know, bottom of the barrel politics. But there's only so much we can do. At the end of the day, the Republican Party has to clean up its own house for America to move on from the Trump era. And
so who would you want to run against?
Who you want to run against?
I mean, let me put it this way. The more MAGA my opponent, then the more that they are showing their true colors instead of trying to cover it up. Because I'll tell you, Blake Tillery and John F. Kennedy, they both have a very composed, you know, sort of like a country club style presentation to make it seem like they're not that MAGA. But what's the truth behind the surface? The truth is that their voting base is still firmly with Donald Trump, which is why what you said, Saba, about the endorsement, if they got one, it would really matter. Steve Gooch, Greg Dolezal, David Clark are all much more willing to toe the MAGA line publicly. Right. And so one of those three guys, I would like to run against somebody who's actually honest about where their political power comes from so that we can have a real discussion as a people about what we're voting for or against. Because the problem is if you get like a Blake Tillery or John F. Kennedy in there, they'll pretend that MAGA is not driving their decisions, but we all know who's driving the bus on that side of the aisle, right? So I would prefer to have a more honest conversation with, you know, David Clark or Steve Gooch or Greg Dolezal, where they represent, where they fly the true flag of the party. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, let me ask you something. So we're going to be talking about some of these down ballot state races, right? So like insurance commissioner, labor commissioner, all these other positions. Given your role in the state Senate, how do you see those positions being important to the average person who just may not quite understand, hey, I know there's a Senate race that I should pay attention to, the Ossoff race, or I know there's a governor's race I should pay attention to, but further down the ballot, why should I care?
So I think one thing that's happening in the Trump era overall is that people are waking up, have been in stages over the last 10 years, that if you want to be part of the solution, you got to get educated, you got to plug in. And it's hard to follow the news. I mean, I remember I watched an episode of This American Life live when I was in New York right after Trump got it, or when Trump was about to get elected, because I came back to Georgia in 2016. Who was it? Ira Glass, right? Yep. Who was like, every morning I wake up and I just Google the word Trump because I know whatever happens, it's going to be crazy, right? It's just, and we've grown accustomed to feeling like to read the news every day or to watch the news it's like staring into the sun. And
well, I would say a caveat of that would be mainstream media and national media.
Sure. No, I'm with that. And so like we've again found, like you say, other sources of news. I think people rely heavily on social media, their friends, podcasts, exactly. But this is a survival mode that a lot of Americans have gone into because it's so painful to keep drinking from the cup of this toxic politics every single day. So then you're in this paradox. How do I stay engaged? How do I participate and learn more without feeling like I'm
overwhelmed?
Exactly. And so what you're saying, I think, is right. And I think now people are waking up also to, hey, there's this rich landscape of local and state offices that I could learn more about. Hey, I could even volunteer for one of these campaigns or donate some money or go to a local, neighborhood meeting or a city council meeting and get engaged on the issues of the day. And if I show up for this narrow band of issues that I get to select, where there's not, crazy partisan national voices in my ear about it, and I can control the ecosystem of information I'm taking in, look at this. I can build a wholesome relationship to politics that starts at the ground level in my local community. A lot of people, I think, are going through that awareness. And so it is cool to see people taking an interest in, hey, a labor commissioner can help, if people are out of work. Hey, an insurance commissioner can impose fines and hold insurance companies accountable in a way that might directly affect my premiums. Like these cost issues that we act like are these big federal presidential issues, but in reality, they trickle all the way down to statewide down ballot offices. So I think this is something akin to a renaissance that not just Georgia Democrats, but all voters are going through to recognize we have so much more agency and power and opportunity to express our voice than it feels like when we just, download CNN through an IV, right?
Cool. So can you talk about just the lieutenant governor position now? Like, how has that position affected everyday people right now in the past that they might not know?
Let's talk about predatory car booting. How about that? So I've got...
That's one of his bills.
Got my vote.
There it is.
Got my vote.
ATL Scoop has taken a big interest in this, as you've seen,
Yeah.
and I've talked to Scoop.
Shout out to the boot girls.
Shout out to, I'm forgetting their names. I know they got the balaclava.
Yeah, the
Oh,
boot
yeah.
girls.
The boot
Yeah.
girls,
Yeah,
right.
boot girls.
Yeah, up in Buckhead. But that's an issue where I had 40 senators out of 56, 40 senators, a supermajority of the Senate. You can amend a constitution with that majority. 40 senators signed my legislation that would ban all car booting in the state of Georgia, okay? But what happened to that bill? It got assigned to a dead committee with no chairman because the chairman resigned to run for Congress and he lost. But that committee can't move legislation. The lieutenant governor is who decides where that bill gets assigned. So instead of putting it in public safety with a chairman who supports the legislation, he put it in a dead committee. And so that bill's not going to move, even though it has a super majority of the Senate supporting it. Right. So with the current Senate rules, the lieutenant governor has the power to do that. Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones killed the bill that would have banned booting in the state of Georgia. So that tells you something right there, that even when you've got a majority support for something or democracy's trying to work, some of these people you install at the top positions, if they're anti what the people want, they have the ability to kill it. And then it's our job to let people know that's what happened. I'll say it again, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones killed the boot ban. So y'all remember that when you vote, right? That's the job that I think a good messenger does. Is there's a lot that happens at the Capitol where power is exercised. And you know what power's favorite thing to be is, right? Quiet. Because they don't want you to know that that's how power was used. Yeah. Everything happens in those back rooms with the old fashions and the cigars, right? So a good, and not like big D Democrat, but also small D Democratic, ethic is to bring some transparency, to voice, hey, here's who really is killing your bill. And, Mamdani's done some of that in New York, right? Yeah. One thing that he has done that is powerful that I don't know if any of his predecessors ever did, we're not just going to, complain that the New York Council is not passing the initiatives he wants. He's going to name names.
Right.
If there are particular council people that are blocking his signature initiatives that the people put him there to do, he's going to hit him up. He'll put the video up where he runs at the camera. This is your mayor. Now let's name names. Let's talk about who's really blocking this. So in addition to being dramatic and good gossip, this is also good politics because it means that wall between the people and power is collapsed even more.
Just a final question, and we'll have you back on the show later. So the primary is May 19th. What are some things that people should be doing leading up to the primary to get engaged and pay attention to the elections? Sure.
So, you can go to your My Voter page, and I'd have to check and see if it's up already, but you can pull your primary ballot. You can actually go look right now, right? Yeah. You can go look and see 2 months in advance what your set of decisions is all the way down the ballot, all the way from John Ossoff to the nonpartisan races or whatever at the very end of the ballot. Judges, right. You can go research every single person. And, I have a comedy background. I did some improv in the city of Atlanta. And one of the rules you learn in comedy is if you
yes, and
if you treat your audience like geniuses, they will be geniuses. But if you treat your audience, like if you make dumb jokes because you think your audience is dumb, they're actually just going to hate you because they're smarter than that, right? So we've got to do democracy like we're all geniuses. We can't be doing democracy appealing to the lowest common denominator and throwing red meat to people based on what we think they'll like. We've got to assume people will do research and encourage people to do research, because we shouldn't be choosing our leaders based on just what name is vaguely familiar to you when you go to the ballot box at the last second. We all have an obligation to go Google, at the very least, Google these candidates, check out the website. I'm not even saying like write a research paper, just check the vibe. Like, what pictures have they put up? What points are they emphasizing on their website? What does it seem like they care about? Are they fighting for you? Are they corporate? Like, what is the vibe? And I think if people did that, it would feel a lot like how you follow sports teams. Oh, that new recruit, we got a new draft pick that's coming in, or this team's going to do well this year because they've got these 3 or 4 key players.
Falcons.
Right. But we could treat democracy the same way, where we start identifying with the individuals who are in the arena and learning more about them, and then we socialize that to our friends, and we say, hey, have you checked out? I know Atlanta City Council's we got a very vibrant political system around our ATL City Council races. What if we took that statewide? We would be so much better informed. We would pick our fighters in a more efficient way. And I think we would all feel like our cup was full. Going back to that Googling Trump and staring into the sun stuff, the answer to a toxic politics is to replace it with a politics that enriches us and makes us feel like we're really part of something bigger than ourselves. And so researching candidates sounds like it might be laborious, but it can actually lead to a real sense of fulfillment for people who want to feel more connected and feel like they have more agency over what's happening.
Where can folks go if they want to learn more about your candidacy, what you're running for?
Sure thing. JoshForGeorgia.com, all spelled out. JoshForGeorgia.com or JoshMcLaurin.com. That's McLaurin with an I. And put me in the Google News machine and see what pops out, because I try to be vocal on a wide range of issues, not just car booting, not just war on drugs and criminal justice, but healthcare and childcare and common sense gun legislation, all the stuff that folks care about. I have tried to be out front to be an advocate boldly for the types of policies that I know a majority, sometimes a super majority of Georgians really want. Yep. So I really appreciate y'all having me on, and I look forward to coming back.
All right, so that was one of your lieutenant governor candidates on the Democratic side, Josh McLaurin. We've extended an invite to Nabila Parks to also join, and keep up with us throughout the election cycle as we have other candidates on for Who Runs Georgia.
Cool. Next up on the topic, a very controversial conversation. And I will admit, this is controversial, but I'm still learning about it. So on this next segment, we got a special guest that's coming on. I'm probably going to ask a lot of questions because I'm still.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a snooze.
It's very wonky,
right.
But it's a very important topic.
So for those that don't know, we're talking about TADs and this new segment of TAD Talks.
TAD Talks.
You want to just introduce the guest when we bring him on? Who's coming on? You know him.
Yeah.
Why is he here?
Yeah. So I asked Sean Keenan, our housing reporter, Atlanta Civic Circle's housing reporter, to come on because while I know we talk a lot about right now what's happening in the governor's election and state stuff, I think it's really important for people to understand what's happening right here in the city of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And TADS is one of those topics that is the average person probably doesn't have any reason to know why they should pay attention to it.
I've heard it. I've been in conversations where people talk about it. I sit quietly so I don't look stupid, but I don't know what it is. I'm being real.
I get it. And the only reason why I know what I know about it is because I used to work at the city and because of our work at ACC where we're covering this very specific particular topic.
All right.
So tax allocation districts, and we're going to talk about with Sean, the mayor's plan. He has a $5.5 billion plan to revitalize 7 Atlanta neighborhoods. And it'd be great if we can show on the site what this plan is. So this is called the NRI, the Atlanta's Neighborhood Reinvestment Initiative. You can go on that site and learn more about it. You can see the neighborhoods and the mayor's plan for this. He's been working on this plan for a long time.
Yeah. I've heard him talk about it a few times. If you ever hear the mayor talk about the tale of two cities, right? And I do believe that Atlanta is the tale of two cities.
Oh, it definitely is.
There's a clear line between the north and the south side of Atlanta.
Right.
And everything is different, from income to health to access to fresh groceries. Like, there's truly a tale of two cities. Like, for us we always say Atlanta is Black Mecca and we're the Wakanda, but also we are probably one of the worst when it comes to income and mobility.
We are.
Meaning, if you are born poor in Atlanta, you will die poor in Atlanta. It's very hard to become up out of poverty. So this plan is the mayor's initiative to combat that, if I'm correct.
Yep, that's right. And he's focused on 7 neighborhoods. These are Thomasville Heights, English Avenue, Vine City, Grove Park / Bankhead, West Hollowell, East Campbellton, West Campbellton, and downtown Atlanta. So those are the neighborhoods that they're focused on. And this $5.5 billion plan that you'll hear Sean talk about is an effort to revitalize those neighborhoods, from transportation to housing to like physical infrastructure, sidewalks, parks, things of that sort. And the goal is, I don't know to what extent the city would say this, but the goal, I think, is to really bring back the middle class into the city of Atlanta.
Yeah. And the reason why we're having these TAD Talks, one, it's a conversation that we need the city to be involved with, because honestly, they're doing a lot of
they're addressing housing affordability is a big topic.
They're doing a lot of meetings across town, like town hall meetings, giving information on this. So one, we want to be able to provide that conversation and ask questions that we don't know. So although TAD Talk today is featuring Sean, we would like to bring on other subject matter experts who determine what's going to happen in this plan. So this is the first interview of many of us really trying to break down what this TAD thing is and how we think it can help transform Atlanta.
Great.
All right.
All right. Sean Keenan, welcome to Where the Party At.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Glad to have you. This has been a long time coming. We're 90-something episodes in, and we finally got you on. And we're here to talk about a big topic, this 3-letter acronym that is heating up Atlanta politics.
Yeah, I would say there are 2 big 3-letter acronyms as a part of this conversation, but the one you are presumably referring to, TADs.
T-A-D.
Tax Allocation Districts. Oh, God. Okay, I should preface this by saying that TADs are tremendously boring. This is a really thick subject, and incidentally, one of the most important subjects that I have endeavored to unpack in my recent journalism career. I guess we should start off just by letting everybody know what is a TAD. If you asked me this daily, I would give you 7 different descriptions. I'm going to try to boil this down as simply as possible. Tax Allocation District. It is Atlanta's branding of a pretty popular public financing mechanism called tax increment financing. The way this works, right? It's a snooze, but I'm going to get to why it's really important. A city identifies parts of town that are in special need of economic development. That may be around the Beltline, the west side, the south side. It's all over town. We have 8 of them. Within these specially drawn districts, the city establishes a baseline of what property tax revenue can be collected when they start the TAD. From there, through economic development and other outside forces, as property values increase, certainly so do property taxes. After the city has set that baseline, when the property tax revenue increases, we capture that increase. That's called the tax increment revenue. So we capture that, we put it into a big municipal purse that's managed by our economic development agency, Invest Atlanta, and then we put it back into the community by way of transit expansion or infrastructure improvements or housing. That is central. TADs are central to the other 3-letter acronym that I presume we're going to talk a lot about today, the Neighborhood Reinvestment Initiative.
The NRI.
Yeah. Stop me if I'm getting out over my skis here.
No, you're good.
So the Neighborhood Reinvestment Initiative is something Mayor Dickens announced in October. I think when he first held the press conference for this, which was to a bunch of fanfare at City Hall, there was a bunch of decorations. He said, I have a plan to infuse some of Atlanta's underinvested communities with billions of dollars. At the time that he announced it, he said $5 billion. The figure is now $5.5 billion that we are going to put from this tax increment revenue back into communities that really need a boost. It's important to know, though, that we do not have that $5.5 billion just sitting around. To capture that, we need TADs. And the way that the mayor's administration has argued we got to realize this goal is through extending the 8 TADs that are scattered around town. And let's see if I can list them off without looking at my notes. The big ones, the Beltline, the entire Beltline and some of the surrounding areas, I think about half a mile on each side, that is its own TAD. There's the West Side TAD, parts of English Avenue, Vine City, West Side Future Fund. That's where their bread and butter is made, is in the West Side TAD. There's the East Side TAD, another big one, and then there are.
When you say East Side, where is the East Side? Like Glenwood, East Side,
So East Side is the parts of town that are just east of downtown. So think of the Sweet Auburn district. Yep. So that is kind of central. Yeah, Fourth Ward. Sweet Auburn, parts of Memorial Drive. So I just named, I think, the first 3 big ones: Beltline, East Side, West Side TAD. Those are our most powerful TADs. They are the ones that generate the most tax increment revenue. They have collected tons of money in the few decades that they've been around.
When you say tons of money, can you give a ballpark figure?
Sure. The Beltline TAD, which is the highest performing in the city, which was created in, I think, 2005, so when the Atlanta Beltline Partnership was founded, that has generated almost $900 million.
So almost a billion.
Almost a billion. I mean, I was being a little generous with the almost $900 million. It's $864.5 million.
Pretty close to a bill.
Yeah. Important to note, when a TAD collects that tax increment revenue, it can only be put back there
in that area,
in that TAD.
Okay.
So
you can't use the Beltline TAD to go spend money in the West Side, for example.
Right. I think that is some of our local politicians' dream. Can't do it. Invest Atlanta, which is our economic development agency, they are in charge of allocating where that money goes. Mm-hmm. But yes, it does go in some cases to private developers. It may go to nonprofits. If it's a housing development, it would go to the firms that are building it. If it's a small business, it may go to go through a grant or something like that. A lot of TAD money, especially in the lesser performing TADs, goes to small business grants
that are administered by Invest Atlanta.
So Invest Atlanta, in terms of how this money moves, they are the boss. There's some cases where, in many cases, the Atlanta City Council has to approve the allocation of the TAD revenue. But yeah, Invest Atlanta is the boss when it comes to TADs. So yeah, I just talked about those big 3: Beltline, East Side, West Side. Made a ton of money, hundreds of millions of dollars. We have 5 other TADs. 4 of them are called the corridor TAD, so that would be Campbellton, which is the areas around around Campbellton Road in Southwest Atlanta. Yeah, let's see. I got this figure in front of me: $33.5 million.
Big difference.
Mm-hmm. Then we got Hollowell, MLK, so Bankhead Highway area,
which is also a heavily gentrifying area.
Heavily gentrifying, still in its 19 years, $14.2 million. The Stadium TAD, which is
Mercedes-Benz.
Around Mercedes-Benz, yeah, 19.2. That was started in 2006. So the big picture here is, the mayor sees this financing mechanism as the way to fund the big neighborhood reinvestment initiative that is going to, what he calls, end the tale of 2 cities. And if you go to any kind of TAD information session, or they prefer this billed as NRI information sessions, the Neighborhood Reinvestment Initiative, you will hear either the mayor himself or his chief of staff, Courtney English, talk about the tale of 2 cities, which means that historically, for decades, Atlanta has in so many ways been divided, literally divided, sliced
you can
through
see
the middle.
line.
Yeah. Kind of like centered by I-20. It is divided by race, income, wealth, and even life expectancy. Like Courtney likes to let everyone know there is a 20-year life expectancy difference between some North Side neighborhoods and some parts of the SWATs. This they see as the way to essentially close the book on that tale of segregation that has kept Atlantans, just divided geographically, socioeconomically. That's it. To do this, though, not only do we need the TADs, according to the mayor's logic, we need to extend the TADs until 2055. So right now, the TADs all 8 of them are going to expire anytime between 5 years from now or 13 years from now. The mayor's office says, no, we need to buy more time because through these TADs, we can, we need more time, one, for them to generate the tax increment revenue. Also, a common strategy for using the TAD money is issuing bonds. So, the city can go to the bond market and say, look, we project we are going to generate X amount of revenue over the next few decades, in this case, until 2055. So let's issue some bonds. We can use the bonds.
So they can get the money now.
So they can get the money now. Yeah, because otherwise you're just waiting.
Right. So let me ask you a question. You've talked to probably dozens of people over the past year about TADs, and then over the past 6 months or so about this particular plan.
Yeah.
What are you hearing in your conversations? And what are some of the questions that folks are wrestling with?
Naturally, it depends on who you're talking to. If you talk to the mayor's office, they're like, we've cracked the code. I mean, they would, I think, reject a depiction of this as the silver bullet. Obviously, there's a lot of financing tools that we need to use to realize something like this. But they do think that, TAD extensions are central to seeing this plan through. If you talk to neighbors, it also depends on where you're talking to them. I mean, some folks on the west side are like, heck yeah, TAD revenue has subsidized new housing in my community. If you're working with John Amman, who's the CEO of the West Side Future Fund, you're probably a big TAD fan. You've seen things, come out of the ground. You've seen places to live materialize. In some places, I think there's an undercurrent of disbelief, this is too good to be true. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I was at one of the NRI information sessions on the Campbellton corridor at a nightclub called OMG That's Good. Place wasn't even open. Yeah, I think it's new. I admittedly have never been there before, but so there was a good amount of fanfare. Everybody's excited to see the mayor walk into their side of town, and there was also some disbelief that too good to be true thought, because that's the Campbellton Road TAD. That's been around since 2006. If you look around that shopping center, Campbellton Plaza,
what's changed?
Not a whole lot.
But there's also Campbellton Road BRT that's supposed to happen. So my guess is they want to extend that TAD in particular, so that they can prepare for the bus rapid transit project.
Nobody's arguing that any of the TADs, even the lower performing ones, haven't done anything. It's just the NRI plan is being billed as this, tremendously transformative project. And I think a lot of people who live along those corridors, so whether it's Campbellton, Hollowell, Metropolitan, they're like, okay, we need to see the proof. You can come and throw a bunch of numbers at us, which, I'm probably boring you guys to tears. So you can imagine somebody who is not especially civically engaged, somebody who's not an economist. I've been studying this stuff for months. Some of it's still Greek to me. I think, and this is what some of the neighbors in Campbellton said to me. It's it kind of feels like the mayor's office is trying to sell us a magic wand. The question becomes, does magic exist? Is there anything on paper that says, okay, well, this TAD that's only generated, 33 million, while its neighbors in the Beltline or wherever have generated hundreds of millions, how the heck are you going to, scale this up?
How do you address the tale of two cities when you've got a tad on one side of town that's close to $1 billion, and then you've got one on another side of town that's $30 billion.
And that's what I've spent the last few weeks, like, trying to not pick apart, but like, obviously a lot of the job is scrutinizing what the mayor does.
If they're trying to extend it and do it, why is it such a controversial thing?
There's a few reasons. First of all, like, this money, it's not just appearing out of thin air. When the property values go up, and you capture that and put it in the TAD, like, a lot has to happen for those property values and property taxes to go up. The thing is, that money would otherwise go to Atlanta Public Schools and Fulton County. So this is just one point of contention, is this is money that, as we see schools in Atlanta, like, closing down, as we see students moving from, like, school to school and, like, having their curriculum upended and things like that, there's a question of, like, hey, couldn't the county or the school system, be a better steward of this? Well, Courtney English has an answer for that. He says the thing is, that money, that increment that goes above that tax baseline we talked about, it wouldn't exist if we weren't doing this economic development stuff in there. And his theory is that decades down the line, in some cases maybe just years down the line, but more likely decades down the line, we will have used this tool to revitalize the community enough so that the people who have been displaced by, whether it's blight or crummy landlords or
just
gentrification,
wanting to live in other neighborhoods that have more
they will then
amenities.
be able to come back to the areas whose schools have become depopulated because people had to move out of town or out of the neighborhood for whatever reason. This is a way, he says, to stop closing not to stop closing our schools, but reopen them after we've left them. Another point of contention. Oh God, I lost my train of thought. 'Cause there are a few ways this is controversial. Big one.
If you go back to school.
Yeah, APS and Fulton foregoing money.
And that gets to the root of sort of the political challenge here. Like, in order to actually extend all 8 of these TADs, both APS and Fulton County have to say, yeah, do it. Because the Atlanta City Council will have to pass its own legislation that says we're going to extend the TADs until 2055. So do APS and Fulton County. City Council has to write their own legislation that says we want to stick around, we want to keep these things alive. I keep trying to use the word life support, which my editor doesn't like, but I think that's what this boils down to. We're trying to put our TADs on life support instead of letting them die a natural death. Well, City Council, maybe it will, maybe it won't. We got a pretty fresh crop of City Council members after the November election.
And you should note that the administration actually put this up for a vote.
That's right.
Before the election
in November
last year.
So I think the administration might resent the idea that they proposed the legislation, but it is certainly a serious goal of the administration. Yeah. So council members last year considered it. I think they got just a hair away from passing something, but at least a few of the more scrutinous council members are like, let's pump the brakes on this because this is a huge
wait until
commitment.
After the election.
Right.
Let's assume he has the 8 votes.
Then I think we're really going to put Mayor Dickens' influence to the test, right? Because then he's got to get Fulton County and APS on board. And, right now APS is thinking like, we could use the money.
Because they have a budget shortfall.
They have a budget shortfall. APS could use the money. Fulton County, they want to build not build a new jail.
$2 billion jail or something like that.
Is it? Yeah, so they are building a new jail. They want to.
No, I think they reworked it, but there's a
Fulton
lot
County
of stuff
has
that
big goals.
Right.
If we're talking about $5.5 billion, like some of which could instead go to, a different local government.
Does it go to like city or Fulton and APS, or does it go to city or Fulton or APS?
So right now, property taxes are divided. Like who gets the property taxes is split like a sketchy pie. APS gets half of our property tax revenue. Fulton County gets a quarter, and the city gets a quarter. This idea of like with TADs, everything above that baseline that we established decades ago, all of that goes to the TAD.
So one of the things you've talked about in your reporting, so you've got this $5.5 billion number, but if the city says APS and Fulton don't want to play ball, but we want to do this ourselves, how much money are we talking about? How much money would the TAD raise then?
Okay, so first off, $5.5 billion for the Neighborhood Reinvestment Initiative. If Fulton and APS reject all 8 TADS extensions, the TADS would collect $1.375 billion. And so I think I skipped over some of the big bullet points of what the NRI plan looks like. So across that $1.5 billion, we're talking, or sorry, across that
1.375.
Across that, well, $5.5 billion total, we're talking about $1.5 billion for trails and green space, $1.8 billion for transit expansion, and like most important to me, both as a housing reporter and someone who is housed and wants to stay that way, $1.3 billion for affordable housing. If APS and Fulton don't play ball, all said, we're talking $1.375 billion and only $343 million for housing.
It's a big difference.
Huge. Yeah.
So in your are you having conversations with APS or Fulton, or what is the vibe there? And is there anything you think the mayor could say that could get them across the finish line?
So I am overdue to have, or I need to have more conversations with Fulton for this, like, first sort of, I think calling it explanatory is reductive, but this introductory story explaining, the TAD math. I tried not to focus too much on the political nuances because that could be, a 3,000 word behemoth on its own. But I'm talking a lot to the folks in the Neighborhood Reinvestment Initiative Commission, which is this oversight board that the city created after, the city council decided, we don't want to move forward with this too fast. When that happened in November, they created an oversight commission with 13 people, I think, some from the mayor's office, some from Invest Atlanta,
some from city council,
some from city council, 2 city council members, I believe, and Ken Zeff, who's on the APS board, and Dana Barrett, who is a Fulton County commissioner. And what I'm hearing, both through on-the-record conversations and just whispers in my ear from people who are like, these are pretty tense meetings. It sounds like there is no consensus on the immediate horizon as far as what we should do and whether the mayor's office has produced the mathematical evidence that says we got to move forward with this. Not to mention, Ken Zeff and Dana Barrett both have, an obligation as elected officials to do what's best for the people they represent. Like, it is not their job to realize the Neighborhood Reinvestment Initiative. I mean, where does Dana Barrett represent again?
Fulton. She's kind of not quite north, but a little bit like Buckhead area, and I think a little bit further north.
So APS has to worry about schools. Fulton County worries about a lot more than Atlanta. I mean, obviously Atlanta is its
the
biggest
entire
population
county.
center.
Yes.
But, they are already part of these agreements that say we're going to forego a certain amount of future property tax revenue. Maybe we're putting the cart before the horse here as far as extending the TADS to 2055. There is talk, and this is something that I don't think you'll read a whole lot about in, local reporting. There are conversations about, like, maybe we should let some TADs just sunset naturally and keep others alive. Some of these TADs have been tremendously successful and will continue to be.
Just because the area has already developed so much.
Yeah. Not only did they start with, like, good bones, if you will, for this kind of economic development, like, the TADs that are wrapped around downtown or, already had like a good sort of commercial foundation, like whether it's in Old Fourth Ward or near the stadium or, parts of the West Side that, have just, in part because of the Beltline, like seen just the natural forces of gentrification creep in. There's some argument to be made about let them continue doing their job. And then, 20, 30, 40 or so, we maybe go back to the drawing board and think, maybe we should redraw the boundaries of the TADs. Maybe, we can identify areas that have, received the sort of love that they desperately needed years ago. And then, focus on the areas that have not gotten that kind of love. So that is at least like one situation that this oversight commission is wargaming. What if we just, let some of these go away? Maybe we let all of them go away. I think, it's going to be really difficult. That is something I'm confident that most people on the commission would agree is like, there's no consensus about how we should move forward with this.
All right, just as we start to wrap up, Sean, there's a lot of moving parts on this, and there's a lot of players. Has the mayor's office talked to you about what a plan B might look like, or have folks who are opposed to this presented a plan B?
Yes and no. I think as much as maybe they don't want to admit it, the mayor's office is to some extent aware that it's going to be easier said than done getting Fulton and APS to buy into this. There are alternative ways that we could at least realize parts of this grand ambition, like Fulton County Commission Chair Rob Pitts, for example. He's talking about and maybe even introduced legislation that would do a better job at assessing commercial properties so that owners of office complexes and stuff don't get such great tax breaks that they're
which has been a long-standing problem.
Very long conversation. Even before I was a housing reporter, before I was a journalist, really, I think, there was discussion about how good a deal it is to be in the office development industry. So Rob Pitts has the idea that we could, if we start properly taxing commercial properties, we could generate, our old colleague Ryan Zickraft did a story on this. I think at least a few $100 million. I can't remember if that was like
it was around. I think it was around $200 or $300 million was basically left on the table.
Yeah,
because they're not taxing commercial property.
Yeah, that would help. I've even spoken to people at the mayor's office who say, if Fulton County actually did a better job at taxing commercial properties, that would take some of the pressure off of the need for our TADs. It would, reduce the city's reliance on TAD funding to actually pursue big
because they would have more money
like
in their general fund.
Right. Short of that, there are like some piecemeal solutions here and there, but like they do really see this as our best bet at raking in, not hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. And something that I think I glossed over earlier, like $5.5 billion is just the estimated cost of the Neighborhood Reinvestment Initiative. The mayor's office argues that if we extend every TAD to 2055, we're going to generate anywhere between, I think, $10 and $12 billion.
Right.
And I'm not sure yet if there's like a good game plan of
where
else that
money
would go.
Right.
Yeah. But where it would go is in those TADs. But there's something that Meredith and I worked on as we were like fine tuning this story. Is like this is a big gamble, the results of which we will not know for like a generation. Because we are talking about a very, very long-term plan.
Obviously, you're talking about neighborhood transforming 7 neighborhoods. So transforming how they physically look, right. Who's there, right? Who's moving into the neighborhood, what the schools look like, the transportation and infrastructure.
I think anybody who's ever called 311 to ask to fill in a pothole knows that like we are not just going to broad brush fix up the areas that need help. I've covered hundreds, probably thousands of housing developments in my 7 years with Atlanta Civic Circle. I have many times written like housing project has been proposed, and then 3 years later, maybe I'm at a groundbreaking. Maybe I'm at a meeting where they approve public financing for it. Like, none of this is going to happen overnight. Mayor Andre Dickens will not be mayor when we find out whether this plan worked. And I think that's something that everybody should bear in mind before we do any consideration of legislation that will lock us into a plan like this for decades.
So let me ask you this. As someone is listening to this and learning more about it and deliberating, what questions should they be asking themselves, elected officials, others, as they think through, is this the right move or not? Or how do we improve upon the existing plan?
Good question. I think hard to say. I think everybody should be tuning in, even if it's just for the occasional like NRI commission meeting. You can watch those online, even the ones that have already happened. I think you should be going to the information sessions. What I think people should be asking about is transparency as we move forward with this. Like a big goal right now of the NRI Commission is to establish the guiding principles, and that is what they're looking for. Specifically, the words they're using, guiding principles that will help us see this plan out. Right now, I don't think anybody could argue against my use of the word vague. I mean, I just looked before we started this conversation. I was looking online at the latest documents of what they think their guiding principles should be. It's a lot of buzzwords like equitable and inclusive, and like those are good
important
things. Yeah, those are important things.
But how do you quantify it?
Exactly. You got to find a way to measure this. Something that does not come along with the promise of $1.3 billion for affordable housing is how many units is that? Where do they go? Well, the city auditor's office right now is working on a TAD performance audit. It will be the first time they've done that in 12 years. And that essentially just, puts the microscope over each TAD and assesses whether or not it is doing its job.
Where the money went and what it did.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
The thing is, the last time we did this in 2012, which was, years after we started the TADs, the last time we did this, the city auditor's office found that not that the city hadn't done its job or that the TADs hadn't done their job in their respective areas, but that the city and Invest Atlanta had not done a good job at tracking the TAD's progress in the pursuit of goals related to housing affordability or transit access or infrastructure improvements or stuff like that. So the city auditor's office taking another fine-tooth comb to the whole TAD network, and in June we should have some documentation of exactly what's working well, and ideally, I am desperate to see this information. Maybe it will give us some sort of perspective to whether or not these TADs, especially the underperforming ones that are only getting like a few million here and there, can they actually grow into the the big titans that their neighbors in the Beltline and the West Side have become.
But it also sounds like that audit might also provide some real clear guidance on what transparency might look like.
Yeah.
But then also it might provide guidance on those key performing indexes, right? Of here's what makes this TAD successful or not successful. So that as they're spending, if they get to the 5.5, as they're spending that money, they've got some better guardrails on here's how we're actually measuring success.
Yes. That's something I heard from a lot of folks, at these neighborhood meetings. It's like sort of what our reporting identified is that there are two types of TADs. I mean, we Meredith and I discussed the sort of bitter irony of the tale of two cities that we're trying to confront. There's also the tale of two TADs, or the tale of two types of TADs. One type of TAD, Beltline, West Side, East Side. I think a lot of people who live or have lived in those areas might see TADs as just gentrification engines. And then the folks who live in the corridor TADs or Perry Bolton, they might walk out of their front door and see the house across the street is still boarded up, or the roof's caving in, or the streets are cracked, or the sidewalks are sketchy. I think our elected officials, our neighbors, just any stakeholder in what is, certainly a mammoth of a vision for, neighborhood revitalization, I think everybody deserves at least a clearer picture before any big decisions are made. And a lot of our city council members are like, well, I at least want to see what the city auditor's office has to say before I press one button or the other.
So we've got a little bit of time on this, is what I'm hearing.
Probably.
Party starter
and party pooper. Who you got? Okay. I'm gonna let you do the starter this week.
All right, my party starters is all of the creatives who are working on these campaigns and coming up with these brilliant attack websites and attack ads.
Oh my goodness! Look, Slick Rick. If you haven't seen the Slick Rick website, look it up. If you haven't seen the Burt Jones,
Burt's Bribes,
the slot machine, like these guys are creating doodles, like Google worthy doodles, like for campaign sites, and then
the one that Jeff against Jeff Duncan, that Jason Estevez,
Duncan Destruction.
Is that it?
That's what it's called, Duncan Destruction. Let's address the real elephant in the room.
Right.
So, I mean, hope y'all getting paid because y'all deserve whatever y'all charging these guys, and it's creative. It is creative. And again, this is that nerd side of politics that you just enjoy the competitiveness of people kind of going back and forth, and like I just think it should be acknowledged because it's not just the norm. Like these ain't normal websites.
No.
These are fun. I literally pressed the slot machine
I did too.
like 3 or 4 times.
What's gonna pop up this time? Yeah. No, that was really smart.
Yeah. So
and creative.
Shout out to the creators.
Let's see. What's the next site gonna be?
Yeah. No.
Who would you do an attack website on?
Ooh,
actually, narrow it down to one person who's running for office.
I'm not gonna lie, because we're in the primary, I would definitely go. Duncan would have a whole, and don't get me right, the site was good. Shout out to Estevez team. They put it out. It was good because it wasn't the same as Slick it wasn't
Rick
it wasn't the creative. It was just, but what it was, they just took, it was just receipts.
Right.
It was digital receipts. They took everything he's ever said or did, and they put it on there.
What would have been creative is like Trojan horse or
something. See, that would have been in line of what they're doing on this Republican side.
I just gave you a free tip.
Come on now. And especially based off of this polling, how I'm hearing, we know Keisha's in, we know she's on the forefront, and everybody's saying who's
going to be number 2?
Yeah, y'all better get to work.
Who gets in the number 2 slot?
Especially,
it's March Madness. There's only 2 teams that go to the finals.
It's only 2 times. So step it up. I do know of agency. like that is not associated with the podcast. It has nothing to do with the podcast. This is just professional work. But shout out to the creators.
Yeah.
Party pooper, I would have to give the party pooper to somebody. This is not necessarily politics or political, but it's for the people. And we all about it.
It is political.
It's political.
It's
political. For me, the party pooper for this week would have to be Pastor Jamal Bryant.
I get it.
On recent news, Pastor Jamal Bryant did a press conference in Washington, D.C., effectively ending the Target boycott. Now, when he went out there, if you go on his page, I don't know if it's still on there, he got a reel of him getting off the plane, carrying a suitcase. Like, I'm trying to see if this reel is still up. Like, he was like really excited
I'm going to go take care
about
of business.
like literally that's what it like the song and everything was all about, like, I'm going to work. So he was proudly going to make this announcement. There were 4 demands that were asked of Target. Out of the 4, they say Target came and addressed 3 of them. They got 3 out of 4 demands. I don't know in my heart, so I'm not going to list them, but it was a lot about rolling back DEI, investing into
Black
HBCUs, putting money of Black businesses back on the shelves.
Right.
And then the last one that they didn't get was invest money in the Black banks. So I'm not giving like the detail of the demands. Yeah. Those are the gist. So they got 3 out of the 4. The one they didn't get was money in the Black banks. And he said it's time to end it. Immediately.
Backlash.
The hugest backlash.
Blacklash.
Like, they came for him. And here's why, for those that don't know. The Target boycott was started from a group in Milwaukee. Attorney Tiffany, I believe her name. And I apologize if I got her name wrong. But it was a sister that started it. And after she started it and it was going, a big moment, to his credit, a big moment in this boycott was him coming and standing on business from the pulpit.
Right.
If you pay attention, you got post tweets of me giving him credit for saying like, yo, I love that he's using his pulpit for the people.
Right.
And he's been addressing stuff. So when he came out and said, we're going to do this fast.
Oh, the fast,
like,
yeah.
It was a momentum boost to the
to the
Target
movement.
Fast. And let's just be real. This Target Fast, although I support it, I don't shop at Target. In the last 5 years, I probably went to Target 5 times. Like, that's how much I don't go to Target. But
I don't go to Target often. Well, I haven't gone to Target since this.
Yeah, but
I don't go to Target often. When I did, I've always preferred Target, I will say.
So,
but honestly,
it's a better
Bezos gets my money.
It's a better experience than the other brands. I get all of that, but I'm just saying
I hear you.
I don't go. But who does? It's Black women.
Black women, right. Black
women they don't even call it Target.
Target.
Target. Black women have coined a new phrase for it.
My outfit from Target.
Like, I think Target has changed. Like, I think they made it more expensive. Like, you go to Target clothes, that's another reason why I don't go. I'm like, this thing is expensive. So Black women were a huge part of this boycott.
Right.
Black women are a huge part of the church.
Facts.
New Birth is one of the largest Black churches in the country.
Yes.
So when the pastor of the largest Black church in the country says he's behind this boycott, obviously it's a major moment for the movement.
Right.
And it gained a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
So when he calls it off without any type of, there was a Zoom call. There was Zoom calls starting the thing, and there was like instructions and all of this stuff.
So he just unilaterally said it's a wrap. It's done.
Nina Turner was. They say Nina Turner was there. They say Tamika Mallory was there. So those are the other two. They're not really getting as much flack.
Oh, so he didn't do it on his own.
He didn't do it on his own.
Ah.
But they ended it. So when the people came back and said, nah.
So did they defend him?
Nah, they kind of like. They
just let him take all the arrows.
This is what happened. He effectively then said, yeah, remember I had the fast. Y'all had the boycott. I'm ending the fast. Y'all can keep going with the boycott. Yeah. But let's be real.
Yeah.
Like, that's a backpedal.
Right.
And here's my issue with it. I say you got to know your history or you can end up repeating it. This was a perfect example of the Baton Rouge bus boycott. Everybody knows about the Montgomery bus boycott, 381 days, and it ended in a legislative change that changed it for everybody. But the Baton Rouge bus boycott, Reverend Jemison, who started it, I don't know the exact date, but it lasted for 8 days. And you know why it lasted for 8 days? Because they compromised. They said, okay, we see the boycott was gaining traction. And they came to them. They had a backroom meeting like he just had. And they said, let's do this. The first 2 rows are for white people. And then the middle row back is for whoever can
whoever's there.
Fill it. Mm-hmm. And then Black people in the back. And that compromise, they took it and it wasn't a win.
Right.
It wasn't a win. 3 out of 4 is not a win. And also, in the words of the famous philosopher and poet, Fat Joe, yesterday's price is not today's price. So when we gave those 4 demands, that was when they were.
That was in a different time.
They was in a different time. They were ignoring you. They didn't think this was gonna last a whole year. This lasted a whole year.
Yeah.
And
they
we've
saw
seen
a financial hit.
We've seen financial hit. We've seen stock for. We've seen a new CEO.
Right.
You are on in organizing one-on-one. When they retreat, you press forward.
Right.
We do not take sides. We take over. So because of that, Pastor Jamal Bryant is the party pooper of the week. Shout out to him. He did apologize, but here's my thing. I will accept your apology if your support of the movement is as loud as your leading of the movement, because they allowed him to lead because his voice was that big. Right. Are you going to support the voices of it just as much as you were doing it when you were leading? That's how I know you're sincere about your apology, and that's how I know you're really for the people. So long, but that's the party pooper.
No, that's good. And I think you educated some folks on the boycott conversation.
Yeah. So, hey, we here, man. This has been a long but informative episode.
It was a long episode. But a lot of good stuff.
Shout out to our editor, Jefferson.
Thank you, Jefferson.
And shout out to JT for stepping in on the switcher, doing his thing. Shout out to the whole Where the Party At crew. Y'all, next week, you definitely want to tune in. We are talking all things Fulton County. A lot of spicy things, a lot of races to pay attention to. People dropping out, people popping in. I got some predictions.
I bet you do.
I got some predictions, but we'll get it in. Thank you so much, Saba, for bringing what you bring to the table and allowing me to do this with you.
Dynamic duo.
My name is Eldridge.
I'm Saba Long.
And this is Where the Party At.
Your favorite political podcast.